Hello, welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. Keith in the comments, Joseph asking where we are. Managed to defeat some last minute technical gremlins to report to the masses as usual.
We did. That was a late panic up, wasn't it? But yeah, all sorted,
Got there,
present and correct.
all's at
Carry
the end.
on
Well,
as you
yeah,
were.
we've got a packed show ahead of us tonight. I caught up with Record Sports Andy Newport earlier on today to get a kind of Rangers view on the post split fixtures and also to
Andy,
talk.
Andy was also at Hearts today, wasn't he?
I was just going to say, Andy was with Hearts manager Derek McInnes, so you got his take on the fixtures as well. But the news that I think we should maybe start on, Keith, regards Rangers, and it's something I talked to Andy about too. Rayan Naderi, WhatsApp rumours galore rather that he might even be out for the season, which would be a massive blow for
Well,
Rangers.
it's more than a WhatsApp rumour, isn't it? I think Andy reported it earlier on Daily Record website. I'd heard something similar and then found out that Andy was already on it. Interesting. The suggestion seems to be that Nadiri has been told that the injury that made him have to come off at half time at the weekend is significant enough that will rule him out until the end of the season, until the summer.
Mhm.
Um, I believe that what's happening right now is he's seeking a second opinion and another scan because this is an injury. My information is that he's been carrying since the start of the season when he was in Germany, and he's been managing it along the way. I think it's just a niggle or an inflammation in his knee, and now and again he feels it a little bit, and he obviously felt it in the first half of the weekend. Um, but he felt it was significant enough to make him have to ask to get substituted at half time. So obviously checks have gone on since then, and it does look like potentially the worst case scenario for him, that he's not going to be able to play any part in the running. That's bad news for him. I tell you what, I think it's a hammer blow for Rangers, Daniel,
I think
because
it's huge, eh?
how often have we talked about this now? For me, he's their best bet. And only the other night, yeah, after he scored the goal at the weekend, um, I was discussing with you. I thought, well, now that they're finally using him as the number nine, and Chermiti's been dropped to the bench, which was something that I suggested a while ago might be the best bet. He poaches a goal. He gets into a position to score that goal that I'm not sure that Youssef Chermiti would have got into. That shows that he's got those natural predatory instincts. And we discussed the other night, Dan, if Celtic or Rangers can uncover a striker who might be capable of scoring 6, 7 goals between now and the end of the season, that might tip the balance in somebody's favour in terms of this title race. A
Yep.
striker that could be relied upon to score goals. I think Nadiri was emerging as the best bet for Rangers, and obviously Kelechi Iheanacho at Celtic come off the bench, looks fit, looks better. He could be the guy that could do something similar for Celtic. I don't know if Rangers, well, they've not really, have they? They've got Chermiti who cannot be relied upon, he cannot be trusted to score goals unless he's playing against Hearts or Celtic. Funnily enough, there are two games which he would probably be ideally suited for it in this running. But the rest of the time, Falkirk at the weekend, he just doesn't look like a guy. He looks like a guy that's happy. Despite the fact he's a striker, he's just quite happy to come off the pitch. Doesn't bother him if he's scored or if he's not scored. That's I'm afraid if you've not got that kind of striker instinct, that desire, that you know absolute busting to score goals, you're probably putting in the wrong position, and you
Yeah.
certainly shouldn't be heading up uh, a Rangers attack at a time when they're going for a title. So that would be a major concern because I think Nadiri looks like a guy that could carry that weight. But if he's ruled out, he's ruled out. I don't think Majovski is. His goal return has been okay, but he's really struggled with the weight of that jersey since he signed. Doesn't look up to it, to be perfectly frank. So yeah, I think Rangers are right in the middle of this fight, and that's a blow. That's a blow to the chin.
Yeah.
Um, because Nadiri, for me, I think he was looking like the guy that you might be able to hang your hat on. in terms of this running, a guy that might all of a sudden hit a scoring streak.
I agree.
So I'm sure that Rangers will be anxiously awaiting the new scans and the second opinion from the medics, because I think it was all. Look, it's a tough job. Of course, it's a tough job at this point in the season when there's so little between the three teams. But a tough job, I think, could be about to get a lot harder for Rangers if it's correct that Naderi won't be able to play any part in it.
As you can imagine, Keith, quite a lot of reactions to the news in the comment section. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, hit us with your thoughts. Rangers fans, Arlene is confident saying, "Well, Chernity will need to step up when we need him." And Greg says it's a chance for Miovski to step up and win Rangers the title. But as you can probably imagine as well, Keith, there's not a lot of sympathy from non-Rangers fans. McInnes says Hearts have had 11 first-team players out this season. Now it's Rangers' turn. Craigie says one Rangers injury, oh bless, try and be in Celtic this season. John says how many goals and assists has Naderi had so far? And David says,
I hear you, John. But my point is quite simple in this one. He's been played in the wrong position.
Aye.
I think from everything I see about the way he plays, his timing, his runs into the box, the areas he takes up, the positions he takes up. Perfect example at the weekend when he gets in top of the keeper to poach the goal.
Yep.
I think that everything about the way he leads the line suggests to me that he's far more of a natural number 9 than Chermiti. And I totally accept that there hasn't been a goal return. That was his first league goal at the weekend. But I think if he was deployed in the right area of the pitch, Rangers might have a player there. I don't believe that playing in that hybrid position and kind of not quite a midfielder, not quite a striker, I don't think they were getting the best out of him. And that's why I was advocating for a while. The solution might be to take Chermiti out of the team and allow Naderi to lead the line.
Yeah.
I think you saw in 45 minutes, he had that opportunity the weekend. He got his goal. He was playing well. I think if he'd come back out for the second half, who's to say? He might have got another one or two. But he looks like the most kind of complete number 9 that Rangers have got at their disposal, except now he might not be at their disposal.
Marzuno isn't having it either. He says he's got 1 goal and 1 assist in 8 games. Huge miss. He also says he looks like a big slow plank to me, which, ouch. I would agree with you, Keith. I think that Naderi, who would you hang your hat on? I know he's not been a great goal scorer so far, but just in terms of a player, Chermiti, Miovski or Naderi, for me, from what I've seen, it'd be Naderi all day long.
Yeah,
but
and so I think if it's now a straight choice between Chermiti and Miovski, it will be Chermiti. But he's just not going to offer you.
You never know what you're going to get, Keith. You never know what you're going to get.
No. If you could roll the two of them into one, you might have a striker there. Obviously, Miovski's proven that he's probably going to score goals in more games. Chermiti's got bags of talent, but I kind of remember what I said about Adam Ida at Celtic. Just not sure that he's given everything that he should be given. I always got that impression with Adam Ida. I thought, you've got everything. You've got all the qualities needed to be a top striker. Have you got it in your heart? Have you got it in your gut? And I was just never convinced. And I just thought, I'm not sure you'll ever make the most of your talent. And I wonder if Rangers might have a similar issue with Chermiti. The talent's there, all right. Is the desire? Because if you're playing number 9 for Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, and you're going into these last 6 games of the season, you've got to be bursting. You've got to be furious if you come off the pitch and you haven't scored, because that's your job. And I'm not sure that Chermiti quite realises that that's his job. So
yeah. Well, look, plenty of comments about that. Also, plenty of comments about the Green Brigade and their kind of, how would you put it, Keith? Reunion or marriage of convenience, I think, till the end of the season with the Celtic hierarchy, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. But maybe it's best while we're on Rangers to talk, to catch up with Andy Newport, who I spoke to earlier on today. He actually starts, we start by talking about Derek McInnes. He was at his press conference this morning. Let's have a listen. Joined on Hotline Live now by the one and only Andy Newport. Andy, how's it going?
I'm very well, Daniel. Yourself?
I'm very good. I need to shake off this bad throat, but after that, I'm I'll be tip top, Andy. Back to my fighting best.
My wee one's come off school and has got the lurgy, so I'm doing my best to stay away from her because, as you well know, when you get kids, it just spreads around your house like wildfire. So keeping her at arm's length.
Well, one guy that's not feeling great either, Andy.
I like that.
Is Rayan Naderi. Rumours spreading like wildfire on WhatsApp today, message boards, X and Facebook, that maybe his season is even over. I know he's not contributed with a ton of goals since he came in, but he's a really important player for Danny Rowe. That would be a massive blow if he is out, for the season.
Yeah, my understanding is he's been sent for a scan. So Rangers are sort of waiting with bated breath, as you say, to see what the outcome of that is. It would be a disaster for Rangers if they were to lose him. Obviously, he was one of the four sort of big January signings that they made, along with two Romans, Chukwani and Skov-Olsen. Obviously, we all know that Skov-Olsen hasn't really contributed much, but the other three of them, you can say they've made an impact. Maybe not in terms of Naderi with goals, but it's his sort of foraging work, his work outside the box, sacrificing himself that's allowed Yusuf Chermiti up front to show some of his best form. And so, obviously, he got a run through the middle as the main striker himself on Saturday and looked really well. Got himself his first league goal, only to come off at half time with an injury. I think it's a hamstring injury. We're still trying to double check that. But so for Rangers to lose him for the run in with two Romans also injured right now again, as I say, who's made a huge contribution since he came into the team, it would be a real major blow as we shape up for these final 6 games of the season. It was funny, I was on the Rangers podcast yesterday with Greg Stewart and Douglas Dickey, and we were talking about Rangers for once this season they'll be able to sort of look at their injury list and be quite content with it. It's not been the sort of wipeout that we've seen the last 3-4 seasons where the times where they've had 10, 11, 12 guys out. But injuries are obviously, you're into the business end of the season, you're going to get them, but to get them two big key ones in such quick succession will be a real hammer blow to Danny Rowe.
I thought at the weekend, Andy, and to give him his due on Hotline Live, Keith Jackson said a couple of weeks ago that he thinks if Rangers are going to win the league, they need to drop Chermiti and go with Naderi through the front. And in fairness, against Dundee United, I don't know what you thought, Andy, but I thought they did look a lot more fluid, and Naderi looked like, that's where he was meant to be. I
mean, I missed the game on Saturday. I wasn't there at highlights on Saturday. I've seen the highlights, obviously, and he obviously scores the goals. A mistake by the Maynard Brewer for the United keeper, but he comes close with a header just before that. And I like the look of him when he played up there in his own previously against Queen's Park. Obviously, again, heavy caveat, it's only Queen's Park. They're obviously struggling at the wrong end of the championship. But for me, it looked like a guy that when you play him as that sort of focal point, he's just desperate to get himself in around the 6-yard box and look for those chances. Obviously, you saw that on Saturday with the goal he scores. I think when Rangers have been playing with Chermiti up front, he's had to sacrifice himself a lot. I've said that a couple of times on here. He's had to sort of do the hard yards, do the Chermiti's running from effectively outside the box, an attempt to kind of take players away for Chermiti and just free him up into space where he can be dangerous. But listen, I mean, that's going to be a blow, but Rangers, I think they're going to have to look for goals elsewhere in the team if they're going to win the league anyway, because frankly none of the strikers have really caught fire at all this season, so they've not really had a reliable front man at all to call upon. So we saw the last 2 games, 8 goals, 8 different scorers, so they have been able to share that burden around, and I think Danny Rowe's going to have to hope that continues into this final 6 games of the season.
Fixtures, Andy. Finally, we got to learn the post-split fixtures yesterday. Excuse me. A lot of people have had a lot to say about it. I know you were at Hearts today to speak with Derek McInnes. How was he feeling about it all?
I must have. I travelled through along the M8 this morning expecting to get to feel the warmth of a Derek McInnes hairdryer treatment. I was expecting him to sort of unleash upon the SPFL, given you're looking at that Monday night game against Rangers, a 5:30 kickoff. and obviously the fact that they're having to go to Celtic Park in the final day of the season, given that they're top of the table, obviously the tradition is that if you're top of the table at the split, you get the honour of the final game of the season at home. That's the SPFL have explained why they can't do it. I get it. I mean, I wrote a piece myself this week with Ian Blair, the former chief operating officer of the SPFL. It's complex at the best of times, but it's even harder to do so when you've got 3 teams going for the title, 2 of which play in the same city. So again, it's a different one. And to be fair to Derek McInnes, he saw that as well. And if anything, he was just, I think he's just excited about the fact his team's in a title race. Okay, it's going to be difficult. They're going to have to go to Celtic Park and probably get a result there if they've got any hopes of lifting the title. But he'd far rather be in this position than be, sitting on as one of the spectators, not involved in it, not in the cut and thrust for the title. So, and I think that's the right attitude, frankly. I think if you sit there and you start making your excuses now, I think that can send a message. I think his message is to his players, they've got an unbelievable opportunity, and if you grasp it, then you'll become heroes. So go in with that, that positive mindset, that use the power of positive thinking, and hopefully that will take you all the way through to the title.
I was going to say there, Andy, is that in your piece the other day, I really liked the little anecdote from Ian Blair about how the fixtures were out and almost immediately Peter Lawwell was on the phone going, "You've made a backside that," and then 2 minutes later Martin Bain was on the phone saying, "You've made a backside that." I thought that was brilliant. Just you can't win really a lot of these things.
That's when he thought he had done it well. He thought, if I've got the both of them complaining, then I must be doing something right. So, listen, I know Hearts fans will feel that, by being league leaders at the split, by rights, they should have the game at Tynecastle. They should be the ones going into the final game with knowing that they're going to have the support of their home fans, a Rockies Tynecastle to cheer them over the line. It's not going to pan out that way, but what it does mean is that Hearts have got I think it's 3 home games leading up to that, so that they've got as good a chance as anything to put themselves in the position where they can go to Parkhead and maybe only need a draw. Might even be able to lose depending what happens with the goal difference. So when they've got that luxury, listen, it's what you can put a million different spins in these things. And as I say, I think Derek McInnes is choosing to go for positivity over the doom and gloom sort of glass half full viewing things.
And from a Rangers point of view, Andy,
sorry, I beg your pardon.
From the Rangers point of view, the 2 games that jump out at me there on your screen, the graphic, Hearts away and Celtic away, back to back. For me, if Rangers can get through those 2 games, I think they must be within touching distance of the trophy. Yeah,
they're the key games. And I mean, you can sit there and you can try and be clever about it. In the day, Rangers need to beat Hearts and need to beat Celtic to be guaranteed, to be absolutely certain that they're going to win the title. It goes for all 3 teams. You obviously have to keep picking up results elsewhere, but when it comes to the crunch, the best way of ensuring you're the first team across the line is to beat your direct opponents. So, as I've said all along, I couldn't wait for this point in the season because I just think it's going to be such an incredible finale, the best ever. We've been treated to some absolute classics down the years. We've had far too many occasions where we get to this point in the year and there's nothing left to play for. I mean, it's all done and dusted. I mean, how many times have you seen league flags been hoisted before we even got to the split? So the fact that not only have we still got a title race to speak of, but the fact we get 3 teams right in it, still European places, still a relegation battle in terms of the playoff at the bottom end of the table, it's a great season for Scottish football, and I'm just so excited to see how it all pans out. I've said all along, I think it's too tight to call. Even when Celtic slipped up last week, I didn't think that would be out of them. The fact that there's only been 1 weekend this entire season where all 3 teams have won the same weekend, which is an incredible start in itself, tells you that there will likely be more spills and upsets and drama to come in these final 6 games. So, hopefully it continues at this because it has been an absolutely thrilling watch from start to finish.
Just very finally, Andy, you mentioned obviously there Falkirk, who Rangers play at the weekend, and I know they've got Barney Stewart as the newly crowned Premiership Player of the Month. I know he's 16 goals for the season now. It's going to be a really tough game, but it's also Falkirk away on the last day of the season for Rangers. A lot has been made about the fact that
Derek McInnes, rightfully so, if he pulls this off, he'd been in the echelon of legends in Scottish football if he pulls it off for Hearts. But I think there's something to be said for the fact that Rangers could, in theory, win the league title at the same place where Russell Martin was given a police escort out at the Falkirk Stadium. I mean, if Danny Rowe were to pull that off, that is a nice bit of symmetry, and it would just be
Russell Martin taken out, surrounded by blue lights, with his, Danny Rowe be carried out shoulder high with fireworks going off in the back. I can see. I'm almost writing the match report now. I'm involved in the Football Writers Association, and we've had discussions about how we go about deciding who's going to be manager of the year and how long you leave the voting process, because listen, there's arguments to be made up and down the league. You look at Derek McInnes is clearly the favourite for it to take a Hearts team and take them this close to a title. Any stage at any year would make him a really strong candidate. But then you can argue, well, obviously if Martin O'Neill, having been drafted in out of retirement to quite take over Celtic, if he can get them across the line, then obviously what a fairy tale story that is, and he would obviously be a worthy winner of those kind of awards as well. And then Danny Rowe, 13 points a draft, a squad that was written off as the worst in Rangers' entire history almost, certainly living memory. So for him to take Rangers to a title, does that put him into a
Scottish, surely?
I think so. Then obviously John McClellan at Falkirk, who's back-to-back promotions, and then to get them into the top six again, just phenomenal. So listen, I think it's you go Stephen Robinson. I mean, wins a cup with St Mirren, and if he can keep this Aberdeen side out of the relegation trouble, then maybe he deserves an outside shout as well. So listen, it's just been phenomenal, a great storyline, and as I said, I just can't wait to see how it all pans out.
Very, very last thing, Andy, with the post-split fixtures out now, how do you see the favourite to win this season Premiership? I'm having to put everyone on the spot every few days because it changes so much, but does it make any difference to you, the fixtures?
Not particularly, no. I think they were all going to have to. They were obviously all going to have to play each other at one point. I don't read too much into it. I mean, I generally don't. I mean, I think I still, as I said, I've said for weeks now, it's too tight to call. I think I thought Rangers were building ahead of steam. I think these injury things that we've just discussed might be that could hamper them. Celtic aren't playing great, but have shown on occasion they know how to get across the line. And Hearts, they've had a wobble, but I don't know, there's part of that fairy tale story that just makes me think that they shouldn't be written off either. So no, I'm going to sit on the fence and say it's too tight to call. I'll save my judgment until about 2 seconds to go before full time in the 16th of May, if you don't mind.
Andy, it's always an absolute pleasure having you in Hotline Live. Thank you so much for joining me, as always.
Thanks, Daniel Bill.
Andy Newport there. Keith, see, just while we're talking about the fixtures,
picking splinters out his backside.
As we come off that call, he said, thanks for that hospital pass at the end there. But yeah, this is the time of year, Keith, you need to put everyone on the spot. What I was going to say there was talking about fixtures. What did you make today, Keith, of Ali McCoist on the radio, insisting like that Celtic run Scottish football, and that's why they've got, according to him, such a more an easier running after in the post split?
I didn't hear it, so I don't know if it was tongue in cheek because he's cheeky chappy, isn't he, Ali? If he's serious, it does kind of it probably is a throwback to his time when he was manager and everything that happened to Rangers, the financial collapse, the various things that he felt Rangers were being hard done by the footballing authorities. Everybody will have their own view on all of that, but I think those scars run a little bit deep with Ali. So if he was just saying it with tongue in cheek, I wouldn't really. To be honest with you, even if he was serious about it, I wouldn't take it too seriously. You wouldn't expect the guy to be slaughtered for it. But that I think that's and do you know the curious thing is, Dan, Ali McCoist when he was a player, it was the paranoia thing was always on the other side of the other side of the city. Celtic were the people who were accused of being constantly paranoid and seeing conspiracies and spooks under the bed. Um, and that has shifted. That whole thing has shifted to the other side of town, and that's for one reason and one reason only. When you're the team that is playing second fiddle in your own backyard, and the guys across the street are the ones that are winning everything, what's the easiest thing to do at that point? It's never actually to kind of look introspectively and ask yourself, where are we getting this wrong? What should we be doing better? It's a deflection. It's blame them. They're out to get us. This can't possibly be our fault. Unfortunately, everything that's happened to Rangers over that period of time has been self-inflicted wounds. There's no point in blaming it all on somebody else or saying, Celtic have become the power, but that's because of everything that's been happening on the pitch.
Yeah.
And Peter Lawwell was a great politician behind the scenes. There's no doubt about that, and he did hold a big influence. Peter Lawwell's not there anymore, so I think he was seen by many Rangers fans as a bogeyman, wasn't he? He was the guy. Lawwell's running the game. Doncaster's Lawwell's puppet. So's Maxwell. Peter Lawwell was a really clever politician. Have no doubt that he was influencing the big decisions, but I don't think that it extends as far as to say that when it comes down to what the split looks like in 2000 and what are we 2026, that Peter Lawwell's hand has come out of the ground and passed over the fixture list that he wants to the sixth floor at Hampden. It doesn't work like that, and it's silly to suggest otherwise. We keep saying it, and I'm sure Rangers over the period as well will look back at top six splits. Well, perhaps they've had the advantage. Unfortunately, it is an imperfect system, and there's a lot of crying and gnashing of teeth going on, and some of the stuff's been ludicrous over the last. I wouldn't put Ali McCoist's thing in the ludicrous bracket just. But yeah, do you know what? You've all got games to play. Play the games and see the best team. The best team, by hook or by crook, will get there in the end. The team that scores the most goals and wins the most games and takes the most points will be champions. Now, where you play those games and what order, home, away, whatever, it shouldn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
If there are Rangers people out there, for example, who look at it and say, "Oh, imagine getting sent away to Falkirk 3 times." Well, I think back to the team that Ali McCoist played in. I think, would they have stopped to pause for a second and complain about getting sent to Falkirk 3 times in a season? Are you kidding me on?
Aye.
So, the question is, have you got what it takes to make yourself champions? That's the question. And we're about to find out the answers in 3 different places over the course of the next 6 weeks, whatever it is.
Yeah, and Ali McCoist is taking a bit of stick in the comments, but Craig writes in though, Keith, saying that you couldn't lace his boots, so sit this one out. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't think anyone was.
That's a stretch.
Aye. And Paulio simply says, we all knew who we had to play and where. Just shut up and win your games with it, which I think sums it up pretty well.
It does for me, yeah.
Aye.
Play your games.
That's it. Keith, you mentioned Celtic there.
I also think, Dan, also think as well, and this is where Derek McInnes was really clever today, as you were discussing with Andy. See if you give players an excuse. See if you make an excuse for them. Oh, we've been harshly treated. Oh, how are we supposed to deal with it? Stop that. Derek McInnes took the very opposite approach to that, and rightly so. Because the minute you start, feeding this narrative that everyone's against you, well, you can use the everyone against you stuff to actually as a positive to a sort of embattled mentality and want to go out and prove the world wrong, but not with the fixtures, because that's an excuse. If you're saying the fixtures haven't fallen right, it's an excuse, and it gives your players an excuse.
Yeah, they'll take
and
it.
I think there'll be a part of Derek McInnes that's going, do you know what? That could be a big result. That we've, rather than get Celtic at Parkhead at the start of this, and who knows what happens, if you kick that one down the road a little bit into the long grass, It's the last game. This could all be settled before Hearts even climbing the team bus to come across the M8.
Yeah.
And I think Derek McInnes will be quite happy with that potential scenario. It's up to Hearts. Just go out and win your games.
In the comments, Luke Skywalker says, just get it done, Rangers, win your games, everything will fall into place. And McInnes says, just hope there's no controversial refereeing decisions for any of the top 3 teams. I'm sure there won't be. I'm sure it'll all be quite quiet and we'll all be quite happy.
Why do you think Des Roach is on speed dial? I've already booked him in for Monday night.
Aye, definitely. Aye.
You just hope there's going to be no controversial refereeing decisions.
Aye, I'm sure there will be.
Yeah.
We mentioned Celtic there a minute ago, Keith. Your column on Record Sport Online today and in the paper was all about Celtic kicking the can.
And tomorrow's paper, Dan.
Tomorrow's paper, sorry. And do you know, see, as I said that, I thought, was it? Anyway, everything's online now. Do you know what I mean?
Aye, all right, did you, boy?
What was I even saying?
Some of us old school print dinosaurs are still trying to earn a living here.
It was all about Celtic kicking the can down the
Digital
road.
chimney sweep.
Celtic being short-term FC, and the big news that's come out since we last did the hotline last night, perhaps an attempt at a short-term fix is bringing the Green Brigade back.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? That's what it is. And, you know, that's what Celtic are, short-term FC right now. Because they can't actually look... Well, there should be somebody in there looking beyond the end of the season. But in terms of Martin O'Neill and his players, nobody can look any further. It's Grand National Weekend, and it's time for Celtic to put the blinkers on and just concentrate on what's dead straight in front of them. Mm-hmm. That's all they can do. And by offering this kiss and make up olive branch to the Green Brigade, I wonder actually if there's some people that are so deluded at the top of the stairs now in the Celtic regime that they think, oh, that's that peace in our times. But the ultimate Neville Chamberlain, wouldn't it? Because there's no way it's peace in our times. What it is peace for the time being. The Celtic support have been crying out for the Green Brigade to come back. They think it's like a 12th man. It will increase the atmosphere. And if things are going well, it certainly will. But we've seen there's a flip side to that coin. When things aren't going well on the pitch, they add another layer of toxicity to the occasion because they'll just aim fire at the board. So, look, I get it. This is a means to an end right now. The Green Brigade aren't satisfied with the Celtic board. The Celtic board don't seem particularly satisfied with the Green Brigade. But there's a truce here. And it's a truce that Celtic and probably the Green Brigade as well believe by bringing it back together for the time being, it might give the shot in the arm that Martin O'Neill and his players need to help get them staggering over the line in first place. But yes, is this the long-term solution? No, you bet it's not. If Martin O'Neill wins this trophy, wins this league, it would certainly constitute a fairy tale, wouldn't it? I mean, it's a fairy tale. 74-year-old, 20 odd years after he last got his hands on the trophy. It's astonishing stuff, staggering, storybook. But if there's anybody in charge of that Celtic boardroom right now who thinks, oh, and that'll make it all go away, it's delusion on a spectacular level. This is an unsatisfied group of fans that are coming in, and obviously, I think they will be prepared to park their issues with the regime for as long as they think they can help the team. But see, for whatever reason, the results go south and Celtic get knocked out of the running over the next wee while. Do not expect the Green Brigade to hold the peace. You know, we're talking about ceasefires in the Middle East. There's a ceasefire at Celtic Park right now. It will not last if Celtic fail to live up to expectations on the pitch. None of it will be directed at Martin O'Neill. And if Martin O'Neill wins it, he's the one guy that will be given all the credit for it, not the board.
Yeah.
If Martin O'Neill fails to win it, there's nobody in any section of the Celtic support is going to blame him for that. It's the board's fault. And they've got a point. Of course they've got a point. It's been grossly mismanaged, spectacularly mismanaged. Even to the point, and I mentioned in the column, Dan, see when you look at pictures of Martin O'Neill sitting at Preston on Easter Monday, scouting players for next season, that is an indicator of a club which is completely broken behind the scenes. Look, I'm fairly sure that Martin O'Neill isn't going to be manager next season. If he is going to be manager next season, again, I'm afraid, despite everything he's done, that has to raise a huge question mark. That just says this board has completely run out of ideas. Just keep hold of the old guy. Just let him take the flak. Just send him out. That's a dereliction of duty in itself.
Yeah.
Martin O'Neill has earned this crack. Whatever happens now between now and the end of the season, he could win the league, which would just be, as I said, a fairy tale story. Even if he wins the Scottish Cup and fails to win the league, it's still a fairy tale story, isn't it? The last day of the season, this guy drives his DeLorean into Hampden Park and drives it off again with a Scottish Cup in the back seat to add to the collection from 20 odd years ago. I mean, it's remarkable stuff. But this is not long-term planning. And how have Celtic managed to get themselves into a situation where a 74-year-old man who will probably fold up his tracksuit and hand it back in the door at the end of this season, no matter what, how's he the guy that you're turning to go and lead up the recruitment process and oversee the recruitment process? That is a major alarm. And it just points to all the problems, the fundamental issues that Celtic need to fix. But that's in the longer term.
Yeah.
And by God, what a job they've got in their hands to recalibrate the whole thing, because it needs that from top to bottom in the summer. No matter if Martin O'Neill stays, goes, whatever, there is so much work to be done. And unfortunately for Celtic, they have made such a mess of the recruitment, whether it was Wilfred Nancy as manager, whether it's the players that have come in the transfer window. Celtic have allowed themselves, or they've overseen a downgrading on a massive scale, an industrial scale. So who in their right mind would sit back, relaxed, say, it's all right, Martin's got it, won the league, won the Scottish Cup, can now go off to summer and relax because everyone's in hand? It's not in hand. Whatever happens here, this is Band-Aid stuff.
Yeah.
How these issues and the fundamental flaws in the football club are addressed and I don't know, what would you say, remedied over the course of summer. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure that the people are there. They're running with an interim chairman and an interim manager. The interim manager is now having to oversee the recruitment department at the same time as trying to get a team which is, Brendan Rodgers described as a Honda Civic, trying to get that team over the line in a title race. It's preposterous, really, when you think about it. And then you've the issues with the medical department, the long-running mystery of Jota, the fact that Alistair Johnson was allowed, the Schmeichel carry on, playing with a dislocated shoulder, and nobody seemed to realise it. Try to sign Mavuka on a 4.5-year contract, the guy's got a heart condition, the medical department don't know about it. I mean, it's faulty tower stuff now.
It's mad. Aye. Well, look, in the comments, Keith, David Bradley says, Keith, I said to you a couple of months ago, and he would be getting a 2-year deal. And Mizuno says, why shouldn't he get another year? Gordon Livingston
because
says...
he's 74, Mizuno. It's the guy not allowed to just go and enjoy his retirement.
Gordon Livingston says...
See if Martin O'Neill wants to do it, then he'll have earned that as well.
Aye.
But I think he's come in, he's done what he felt was his duty for Dermot Desmond and for Celtic as a football club. I think liberties are in danger of getting taken here. I think Celtic need to be looking very seriously about how to drive the thing forward, not to drive it back to the future. But you know what? Martin O'Neill, he's been loving it. You can clearly see that. Maybe he's got the energy to go another season. I think it's a hell of an ask.
Gordon says O'Neill signed up for the gig, no one's forced him to do it. And I'm a great guy. He says, stop being ageist about
Dermot had a what?
He says, stop being ageist about O'Neill, Keith. You aren't far behind them.
Well,
that's outrageous, isn't it? That is outrageous.
Come on, man. I've got a little bit, a couple of decades.
Keith's, you're 70th next year, isn't it? He's got at least 4 years. I'm a great guy. Just checking Keith's reaction. Excellent. just to go back to Celtic, Keith, the Green Brigade, as if to kind of underline your point that this is a short-term truce and it's not quite all hunky-dory, the Green Brigade have already issued a statement asking or demanding an apology, saying we will not forget the experience of recent months, the personal impact it's had on supporters, and they've also called for a formal apology to supporters for the manner in which the situation has been handled, and they also want a refund for games that they've been banned from. So, the reason why I'm bringing this up, just to finish in Celtic, is could this backfire in Celtic? You know, as you say, if it doesn't quite go right, I mean,
Well, listen, 100% it will backfire if the results don't fall into place. 100% it will backfire because these guys have proven time and time again that they're the militant wing and they'll do as they please.
Aye.
That's what they do. That's what this whole culture is about. I actually, funnily enough, think they've got a point there in terms of I think they're probably entitled to a refund, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought so. I don't think that's unreasonable in the slightest.
And in fairness, Keith, Mick saying in the comments, the Green Brigade are saying just exactly what you just said, Keith, 2 minutes ago about Celtic. They're, you know, I don't think no one's taking issue, or I'm certainly not taking issue with the points the Green Brigade are making. All I'm saying is that, and Mick said a minute ago, the Celtic players will be delighted, the atmosphere and what have you. But Craig says if they go to Fir Park competing, the tennis balls will be back out. It could be quite toxic if Celtic don't start getting the results quickly.
Listen, here's the thing, right, about these groups, whether it's the Green Brigade, the Union Bears, whatever you want to call them, right? Once you've created the monster, you need to keep feeding this monster. Because if the monster gets hungry, it'll just turn around and eat you. And that's what happened with Peter Lawwell. And that's why he helped bring this whole thing to life at Celtic Park. And ultimately, it ate him up and spat him back out. Twice, by the way. Twice. And that's the problem. You cannot. Maybe they'll sit in a meeting. Yeah, oh, just sorry, sir. Yep, 3 bags full. Well, no, you can trust us. We'll be. Ultimately, behaving in a sort of decent, civilized manner seems to be beyond them, because the whole culture is about shocking and offending and you know making people's eyebrows rise. That's the name of the game. So yes, I'm entirely positive that the Green Brigade will return full of good intentions because they want to see their side winning games of football. The flip side of that is, how many times have you seen with ultras groups, whether it's the Green Brigade or anybody else, they think they're the stars of the show, and sometimes to the detriment of the team, and they don't care. They'll do stuff, whether it's pyrotechnics, whether it's getting fines for this or that or the next. It doesn't matter, because they're doing what they want to do. And so, as much as and I would probably take them at their word if I was Celtic's board, that these guys will come back into the stadium and they'll try and bring the energy and they'll try and get the tempo up and the atmosphere up, and it should be good for the team. That's all very well and good. They're not out there on the pitch. Martin O'Neill's still dealing with a substandard group of players. And if for whatever reason the results don't follow in the way that Celtic would hope they would between now and the end of the season, this crowd will turn. And you can guarantee that. There will be they're not just going to sit quietly and just, twiddle their thumbs between now and the end of the season. They'll get militant again. If the results are getting away and if the title's getting away, it won't end well. Mm-hmm. But Celtic have got themselves into such a mess in dealing with this that, it feels inevitable that there will be another backlash. And even if it's not, and even if it's all sweetness and light, and even if Martin O'Neill does win the double, wins this league title, makes history for his achievements, writes the fairy tale, wins the Scottish Cup to complete the set and have an incredible end, where do you think the problem? Do you think that's it? I think the Green Brigade's coming back at the start of next season and it's all sweetness and light? It's not. You're right back to square one, which is why, go back to what we said earlier, it's short-term fix FC right now, and that's just the nature of the beast. It's the way it's going to have to be until such times as it takes a turn for the worse, and we go back to having to address the sort of root fundamental issues.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
What will happen for the time being is just ignore that, park it, but only for so long as it looks like Celtic are going to win on the pitch.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Skywalker says definitely Keith spot on, and a couple of people point out that David Bradley says the atmosphere has been missing big time without the Green Brigade. David Gillespie says, can we talk about the other good things these guys do? I do think the atmosphere will be vastly improved, particularly for those games against Hearts and Rangers. But John says the board will deal with the Green Brigade at the end of the season. It's an easy truce. The thing that you said there, Keith, about is it all going to reset in the summer? Of course not, but nor it should. I mean, this Celtic's the way Celtic's been run has been terrible, really, really poorly for so long now. So,
well, here's the thing that would worry me from the perspective of the Celtic board. What did we say going into that January window? After everything that had happened, after the catastrophic failures in the previous transfer windows, after Brendan Rodgers and the Honda Civic, after all that stuff, after selling Kyogo and not replacing him, after then getting rid of his understudy and not replacing him either, it's been utterly shambolic. So when it came to January, you're thinking to yourself, these guys aren't daft. The last thing they are is daft. They've got to throw the kitchen sink at it in January. And what did they do? It was staggering.
Complete opposite.
Staggeringly bad. So, as much as I'm going to say they're smart men, I'm sure they'll think if we can just somehow get to the summer, keep the peace, keep the title at Celtic Park, maybe win the Scottish Cup, then we can go for a big rebuild and we can, really, go big in the summer in terms of a rebuild and doing all the things that are required. But how's anybody supposed to have any faith in these guys to do that? When you look at the track record, because the track record is one car crash after the next.
Yeah.
So why would you allow them to stay at the wheel in the summer? And so I have sympathy with the Celtic support that are really frustrated with this. But I don't know how it resolves itself. That's been my issue with Celtic. How does this resolve itself? Because these guys aren't going to fall on their sword. Dermot Desmond isn't going to push them out the door. If anything else, if anything but that, Dermot Desmond will protect them because that's the way he does it.
Yeah.
These are his guys. I don't care what the fans say. I'll double down. Double down Dermot Desmond. And that's... So unless it gets to the point where Dermot Desmond, and there's no indication of this and hasn't been any indication, quite the contrary, unless it gets to the point that Dermot Desmond said, right, okay, I've found somebody that's willing to buy my shares and you can all move on together, that would be an elegant solution, I guess. But I don't see any sign of it happening. And if that doesn't happen, then how does the rest of it get resolved? So this is what I'm saying. Short-term fix. All Celtic can do right now is try to get to the end of this season and then see where they are.
Yeah. Green Machine points out 80% of fans want board changes, not just the Green Brigade. I mean, I think that's a good point. I'd go further than 80%. I mean, who knows, 95%.
But not 80% of the supporters behave in this sort of a more extreme militant manner that section of the ground does. And that's where they bring attention on themselves with that.
Aye, absolutely.
And with a whole bunch of other stuff.
Aye. I think that's us for Wednesday night's Hotline Live, brought to you by NordVPN. Thank you for all of your comments. Massively appreciated as always. We'll be back to do it all again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. I hope you can join us then. Keith, it's always an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Daniel.
And
yes, we'll see my ad up here. Hold on 2 seconds here. Having technical issues.
Come on, Grandad, come on.
Right, okay, that's me. Done. Right, 6 o'clock tomorrow, is it?
At 6 o'clock tomorrow, we'll make sure we'll get Keith fitted up for his new glasses and walking stick, and hopefully we'll be there tomorrow, and we hope you can join us. Thanks very much for watching.
See, I should do a Martin O'Neill.